Okay, Devin.
Hello, everyone. We're gonna give it just a couple of minutes here for everyone to join. I know sometimes it takes a few seconds to fully connect, but welcome. As our screen is indicating, you are at the virtual mobility meetup. So good to have everyone here. Another virtual edition. I appreciate all those who are engaged enough, interested enough to take a summer afternoon, a balmy summer afternoon, to join us for this. We really appreciate it. I know, we'll have maybe a more intimate group than usual this time around, but we have some really interesting conversation and a great guest. So I hope that you brought questions around electrification. We've got a great speaker on that we'll get to in just a minute. We have, some great discussion. We have some great people on. I mean, I can see, some of the names I recognize. So make sure that you start thinking about your questions. We'll also have time later to kind of give a shout out and talk about yourself a little bit. So without further ado, let me get into the official program. If you don't recognize me, my name is Devin O'Reilly. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at the Detroit Regional Chamber. And I, along with my team at the Chamber and the MICHauto team, as well as our colleagues at the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, are the hosts of this mobility meetup. And just to give you a quick background, we've been doing these for a few years now with the goal of better connecting this mobility ecosystem here in Detroit. And that means that, whether you're a startup, whether you're a resource provider, whether you're a major auto firm, small auto firm, just a technology company that has some kind of tangential relationship with the industry, we want you to be a part of this. We want you to plug into what we're doing, no pun intended, and meet some really interesting people and start creating some natural connections. And then that's what it's all about. Now, normally we hold these in person. We haven't done so for over a year. I'm hoping that maybe this might be the last one that we do virtually, but more to come on that. But in any event, we're going to do this one virtually. So the way it's going to go is pretty straightforward. I'm going to bring on my colleague, Catherine, in a minute here. And she is then going to bring on Mike Kennard, who's the CTO and VP of Engineering at Xlfleet. They've got some really cool things going on. They've recently opened up a fleet electrification technology center in Wixom. So you'll hear more about that. Then please feel free to submit questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, whichever one works for you. But I'll be monitoring that. Please ask good questions. Best question, I'll get you a drink at the next mobility meetup that we have in person. So think of some good questions for our guests and for any of us really that you have. And then we'll go into some facilitated networking. So you'll have an opportunity to kind of raise your hand and kind of say who you are, what you're doing, what you're working on, give everyone an update, because it's important to kind of keep everyone in the loop on what people are doing now, because it's harder to kind of keep up with that. So we'll do that, and then we'll have my colleague Len from Connect Space come on and talk to you about an app that we can use to continue this conversation and continue these connections and continue the networking even after the event. So that's kind of the run of show. We'll be done just about in an hour here, but I would say a action-packed hour as it is. As I always encourage people to do, is in the spirit of a mobility meetup, feel free to grab yourself a drink. That's kind of the casual atmosphere here. And if you're outside like I am, it's pretty warm, but it's still worth it to enjoy a summer afternoon. So without further ado, let me bring on my colleague, Catherine Snorerson from OFME.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Devin. Like Devin said, it's great to see everyone here virtually, and we can't wait to do these again in person with appetizers and drinks and do it safely and see all of you again in person. So it's great to see the crew today. So like Devin said, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Snorerson. I am the Managing Director for the State of Michigan's Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. If you aren't familiar with us, I'll give you the 30-second pitch, and then I'll be happy to bring Mike on for a good discussion around Xlfleet. So our office actually has roots back to 2016 when we started under Planet M as a brand for the state of Michigan, and then in 2017 started offering business development services focused on retaining and attracting mobility companies and helping them grow here in the state. Under Governor Whitmer's administration, she signed 2 executive orders at the beginning of 2020 at the MICHauto Summit. One, creating the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification, and naming my boss, Trevor Paul, the Chief Mobility Officer for the state of Michigan. And then two, the second one was creating the Council on Future Mobility and Electrification. So our office covers both programming, which I cover, mostly focus on grants and connections and networking like this opportunity today, but it also covers policy, and that's where the council comes into play. And that group is actually coming out with a report on policy recommendations that impact mobility and electrification here in Michigan sometime in September. So keep an eye out for that first policy report. They came out with a report on the status of Michigan back in February, but the first policy recommendations are coming out this fall. And so together, our office, both the programming and the policy side, our vision is to create a stronger state economy through safer, more equitable, and environmentally conscious transportation for all Michigan residents. And it's one of my favorite parts of the job, that we get to connect with so many innovative mobility and electrification companies. And the one we're talking to today falls into both of those buckets. So if Mike, you can join me on the screen, I'd love to have a quick chat. And then we, like Devin said, we will open it up to Q&A. So please, as we're chatting, feel free to submit questions, or we'd love to see your face at the end of this and have you actually ask Mike a question. So Mike, we'll get it started with a pretty easy question. Can you just tell us about Xlfleet and your role in the company? We were talking before, everything spanning from your technology around electrification kits to your service, electrification as a service. So you can kick us off there.
Great. Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Devin, for the introduction and the opportunity to speak about something that's really important at the moment. So, my name is Mike Kenhard, and I'm CTO and VP of Engineering for Xlfleet. Xlfleet is a company that started a little over 10 years ago out of Boston. The guy that started it came out of MIT with a view to really try to do something in the shorter, medium term to help fleets transition to a more sustainable transport. And so initially, when we started off, our goal was to develop hybrid and plug-in hybrid systems that get fitted to commercial vehicles. And our model is that we develop a system that can be fitted either to a vehicle that's already in service or as it's going into service. And we're then able to offer vehicles to those customers that can start to make a difference towards reducing their environmental impact. I think, as you know, the goal in the long term is to get to a carbon-free transport situation, but the reality for a lot of these fleets is that they're really not able to make that leap in the short term, either because the products aren't available or because of the costs involved in doing it. So the solutions and systems that we have in place allow them to make that first step.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that obviously you have centers around the US, but it helps Michigan reach its goal around being carbon neutral by 2050. So moving closer to that goal, which is fantastic. So speaking of Michigan, can you tell us a little bit about Xlfleet's presence here in the state, including the R&D center in Wixom with that announcement that came out last March, and why you chose Michigan?
Sure. So as I said, we started in Boston as a technology company, and over the last few years, we purchased another business in California, really to focus on electrification. And as those businesses grew, it became pretty clear to us that attracting talent with the right skills, the right automotive level knowledge and experience to do the work that we do is a challenge in both of those locations. Both of them are great places to be and work, and as a result, there's a lot of competing tech industry looking for the same talent. And we were able to find good people and build the business, but really to get the scale and the growth that we wanted to have, we chose to come to Michigan. And primarily the reason we chose is, as I said, to find the right talent. But there's a whole host of other reasons why we want to be in Michigan. This is really the automotive base, and as part of our growing business, we want to be able to tap into the supply base that's already here. We can hop in a car and drive from our office and see a supplier in 5 minutes. We're not getting on an airplane, and this is where the test and validation facilities are. So as we build and scale our own capability, we still want to tap into the capability that's in the area. So motor testing, battery testing, vehicle level testing, this is really the place to be.
Yeah, that's great to hear that it's been easy to find partners in the state. And I definitely want to get back to that topic at the end as well. But I want to touch on customers. So can you tell me a little bit about the customer segments that you have, the types of fleets that you've done the most work with, both for your plug-in hybrid electric system and your hybrid electric system? And what fleets in Michigan are you targeting, hoping some of those partnerships extend to fleets in Michigan as well?
Yeah, so when we started off, if you take a step back, with a hybrid system, the benefit comes from the duty cycle that you get with the vehicle. So not every customer, not every fleet is going to benefit from the type of system that we have. So we have to focus on customers that have fleets that will really see a benefit. And so we look at fleets that are doing deliveries. We're looking at fleets that are doing regular stop and goes, duty cycles that create that value. And so some example customers that we work with, Coca-Cola, FedEx, Canada Post, so major fleet operators. And for our hybrid system, that's been a really good way of getting them introduced into sustainable transport. A few years ago, we introduced our plug-in hybrid, and that has been very successful. And what we've seen with our plug-in hybrid customers, it's helped them to really understand what's needed from a charging infrastructure as well. Because once you start having to add all that facility to your building, there's cost there. There's mechanisms in place that you have to manage and track the usage and make sure you're actually making a difference. So we work with the same type of fleets on the plug-in hybrids, but we work very closely with them on the vehicle, but also on the charging side.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so when you're starting to have those conversations with the fleet about moving to one of those two solutions, either plug-in or hybrid or your hybrid electric system, what are the benefits that you walk through? What are the benefits to them in electrifying their fleet? Yeah. Like you said, some fleets don't meet that formula, and there's some fear around it being expensive. So maybe you could also touch on the cost savings.
Yeah, great question. So, most of these fleet operators have dual motivations. So they're primarily motivated by running a fleet that meets the goals of the business. So they have reliability goals, they have fuel economy goals, and they do a lot of things around driver training, for example, to achieve those as well. But when we approach a customer, the second goal is a lot of businesses have pure sustainability goals. They need to achieve a certain target, a certain standard. But from our point of view, businesses that are just driven by sustainability and don't care what technology goes on the vehicle, that really doesn't pan out in the long run. So when we put our systems onto the fleet vehicles, it's important that the customers actually see the value. So we go through a process, we've done this recently, where we'll put GPS devices into their existing fleet vehicles so we can measure exactly what they're doing. And for most fleets, you actually see a pretty wide range of use cases within a single fleet. From that data, we're able to then run that through models we've developed to guide them on which vehicles will see different benefits. And we'll be clear to tell them that some of these vehicles, you're not going to see any benefit. You're actually at that point adding weight to the vehicle and not much more. If it's a truck that goes from one stock to another without really doing anything in between, not the right application. So we're able to help guide the customers onto what's the right application within their fleets. And with our hybrid system, we've seen fuel economy savings up to 25% on the right applications, and everything between, everything from 25% down, depending on how they use the vehicles. And for our plugins, we've seen up to 50%. The plug-in packs, the batteries that we put in are pretty big, so they're able to operate with battery power, not solely, but supplementing the engine power for quite a lot of an operating shift. Because that's the mindset of the fleet operators. It's what is it going to do for me during that shift? And so ultimately that translates into cost savings for those customers, and that varies very much depending on how they use the vehicles.
That makes a lot of sense. So would you put that GPS locator on the car before a customer decides if they want to go with plug-in hybrid or hybrid electric system, or either one of them? Yeah, that's
something we've done recently to try and get better alignment with the customer before rolling out systems into the fleet.
Right.
But as part of our system, we include GPS data and telematics on every vehicle. So we have a pretty good idea of the use case that most of these fleets see, whether it's an ambulance fleet or a delivery truck fleet. So we have that inherent knowledge that we've gained over many years. Yeah. But no two fleets are the same. So it's important to understand how do they really use those vehicles.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of your growth plans and kind of what's next on the docket for Xlfleet. So can you talk a little bit about, we talk about current state, but kind of paint the picture of what's next.
Yeah, and as I said, when we started our business, the prime goal was getting the fleets to accept electrification, and the technology that we had initially was a great way to do that. But the end goals really are to go to an all-electric where it makes sense. So we're developing fully electrified vehicles, and the first one of those will be launched at the end of this year. And that's a refuse truck application that will be going into a number of cities across the US and Canada. And that's the first of a number of programs that will roll out through the next couple of years. And in order to support these new programs and the growth in the business, we're going through a pretty aggressive expansion and hiring phase. Over the last 9 months, our business, the number of people in our company has tripled, and we have pretty big plans to continue at that rate for quite a few years to come. And specifically in Michigan, we're looking to again treble the number of engineers that we have at that facility over the next couple of years, and we're well on the way to do that.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. With the support of the MEDC, of course.
Sure. Yep. Of course. Yeah. No, I love hearing you talk about fully electric vehicles, and obviously having the demand match that supply and needing to hire more for that. So that's definitely what we want to see. And my next question was around growth in Michigan, but you already touched on that. So maybe we can talk about areas of collaboration, because a big focus for our office is public-private partnerships. So how can the public sector, our organization and others, because we work with other state agencies, MDOT, LEO, EGLE, and of course MEDC, to partner with the private sector and to help them grow where it makes sense in the space. So what are some of the most important issues for companies and government to collaborate on?
Yeah, great question. One of the biggest challenges we face is the inconsistency in legislation across the US and Canada. So when you do anything that modifies a vehicle, you have to go through a pretty extensive process to make sure that what you're doing is safe and legal, and we do that. And as I mentioned, there's a huge amount of inconsistency about what you need to do in each of these different locations, and that drives a huge amount of engineering overhead to do that. So that's one of the factors. The other is the legislation space really hasn't kept up with the rate of change of technology. So we're going to legislators at the moment to talk about technology that we're launching next year that they haven't even thought about yet. You know, how do we legislate this? Because this is a great idea, but nobody's done it before. So those are type of some of the things that we struggle with, and we like to work with the local, state level authorities to get clarity, and federal level to try and drive to consistency in approach across that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what about the electrification infrastructure as far as charging stations? Are you finding that a lot of your fleets are using their own chargers, like you mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation, or are they depending more on the public infrastructure?
For fleets, it's very much captive charging systems. So for if you look at how most fleets typically operate, you have a return to base approach. So at the end of that shift, it goes back. But that's not exclusively the case. So we've worked with a number of customers that with utility trucks, for example, that the utility companies have, a lot of those actually go back to the tech's houses at the end of their day. Right. So we've put in place systems that enable those companies to pay their employees for the charging that they're doing when they're at home. Now, for plug-in vehicles that are plug-in hybrid, typically you can operate with what's called a level 2 charger, level 1 or level 2, which is the lower end of the charging that you can typically do from a residential home. As you go up in scale into fully electric vehicles, higher class, higher weight vehicles, then the sizes of batteries involved mean that in order to charge them in a reasonable time, you have to go up a step in charging. And the costs associated with charging there are pretty high. So that's typically where that's going to be an exclusive realm of the fleet operators as we go into that type of market.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's great. And I'll just end with, just in case there's anyone on the call that represents a fleet, how can a fleet owner begin to work with Xlfleet?
Yeah, so we're really scaling internationally. We're in the process of reaching out to all the fleet owners and fleet companies across the country to make sure they're aware of what we do as we grow. But anybody can go to our website, xlfleet.com, or Twitter, or reach out to me directly, and I'll get them connected to the right people to discuss how we can help them with their goals.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's been fantastic learning more about your role at Xlfleet. Is there anything you'd like to add that we didn't talk about before we open it up to Q&A?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess the only other thing is, as we grow in Michigan, we're really looking to partner with suppliers that are in the area, for service companies that are in the area. So we're very much in a discovery mode of who do we need to work with, where do we need to get support. So we're definitely open to approaches.
Okay, perfect. Taking notes for, it's been great to learn more, but also find out ways that we can continue working together and help Xlfleet grow here in Michigan. So with that, I'll have Devin come on for a few more questions, and I saw some come through the chat, so keep submitting them. Over to you, Devin.
Yes, thank you very much, and thanks, Mike, again for doing this. As Catherine mentioned, if you want to turn on your cameras, feel free to. I hope that everybody at this point has showered and put themselves together for the day. So no need to hide unless you're truly in a cluttered bedroom somewhere. But that's what the blur option's for, right? So I want to get to a couple questions, Mike. that, you know, you actually kind of jumped on the first one I had, because we always kind of try and encourage that with these meetups is, you know, who are you looking to partner with? And I think you kind of alluded to that. But certainly if there's others on this call, I mean, you know, we count many colleagues and partner companies who are suppliers who are in that space. So I know there's people who are happy to connect with you, and we're going to try and do that. So is there anyone else you'd like to connect with, or any types of companies you want to connect with? Or I know you kind of mentioned it, but if there's anything else.
Yeah, so I mean, the nature of our business means that we look for software expertise, we look for telematics expertise, and on the hardware side, on power electronics businesses, battery companies. You know, those are the people that we're talking to on a regular basis, and as well as people that can support contract manufacturing.
Sure. That's great. And I know either those types of people are either on this call or are part of our network. So we'll definitely make that happen. A question we had is, what are some of the hurdles that you need to overcome in order to convince customers of kind of the value of EV? Is it upfront cost, warranty concerns, something else? I know we see this in other kind of EV situations, but what do you see as, or what are you seeing as kind of the hurdles that are needed to overcome?
Yeah, I think you have to kind of break the question down into what does EV mean? So for full electric vehicles, for a lot of our customers, that's still not necessarily the right answer. So if you look at utility companies, for example, and you know, in Michigan's great case recently, where the storms come through and hundreds of thousands of houses are out of power. Now, those utility trucks will be out in the field working 24 hours a day. And for those type of applications, a full EV is not the right answer and may not be. So yet those companies still have sustainability goals. They want to make a difference. They're electric companies. So for them, it's about doing what they can, but maintaining the core goal, which is they've got to get the job done. You know, these are not toys, these are tools, and therefore that's a priority for them.
Sure. So this is kind of a piggyback question to that, but you know, given that it feels like the perception of EVs and the news you see is evolving rapidly in a positive case, you know, can you speak to a little bit how you've seen that perception change since you started at Xlfleet? I mean, I know, you know, we've gotten locally a lot of attention with the Mach-E, and it used to be just kind of Tesla was kind of the EV player, and everyone kind of knew EVs through Tesla. But now you have all these different companies entering the game, and it seems to have kind of started to evolve that perception. Can you just talk a little bit about when you started at Xlfleet and where you are now and how that perception's changed? Yeah,
so I think over the last few years, it's definitely changed as people see that the vehicles that are out there are still out there. You know, they're not causing lots of problems. They're not breaking down all the time. They're reliable. They're robust, and fundamentally, a pure battery electric vehicle has far fewer components on it than a conventional vehicle. So, you know, it's set up to be a more reliable, durable product in the long term. But I think, you know, you have to consider from our business's point of view, we're very much focused around fleet, and you know, fleet buyers are not the guys that are driving the vehicles. So the motivation for those people to make an EV choice is very different to a passenger car consumer making an EV choice. I think the general awareness and exposure to more EVs in the market help to educate and inform those fleet buyers, but primarily their motivation is different. So it factors in, but I think it's still a very different decision.
It's good insight. So another question we have from the attendees is, what other states or countries do you look to for the most advanced legislation of relevance to your objectives? So are there any kind of best in practice states or even countries that you're looking to in this space?
Yeah, so we have plans to expand what we do globally, and in the same way that we've done across the US and Canada, to start with hybrid and plug-in hybrid, because for a lot of the the countries around the world, they're going through that transition phase. But there's a different mix of challenges in different regions. So if you take Europe, for example, they have very advanced legislation that make doing what we do very difficult. So, it's not a market that accepts modifying a vehicle easily, but yet they're crying out for the products. So the challenge in Europe is more about overcoming the legislative hurdles to get it done. Whereas if you look into Southeast Asia, a lot of the governments in Southeast Asia and the Middle East are really driving the goal for sustainable transport. And they're pushing for the type of products that we do in municipal fleets. And they're more willing to move quickly on the legislation. And again, a lot of it comes from, historically, the legislation is written around a conventional vehicle that's finished and that's what you buy, not the model that we've been doing. So those are some of the challenges that we faced as we're rolling out internationally, but there is a lot of interest and sales, and we've actually sold our first system into Singapore recently.
Very cool. So just on that, you mentioned during the interview with Catherine that you're having to approach legislature with technology that they haven't even really thought of yet. And so I know this isn't necessarily directly your role, but how do you approach lawmakers with ideas and innovations that are so foreign to them that, like you said, they haven't even thought of?
We approach them carefully. So, for example, in California, we work with lobbyist firms that can get us connected with the right government organizations. So you have the legislature on one side, and you also have government organizations who are there to promote EV and hybrid vehicles. And so we try to bring them together to support that discussion. So we're not just going to the legislator. We work with partners to help build momentum, to help build our case effectively from the inside. So if the people that are pushing for more sustainable transport understand the value of what we do, we get them to help us make that argument.
Makes sense. And then a final question here for the refuse vehicle that you mentioned. It's coming out later. Is that manufactured by Xlfleet, or is it an uplift of an existing chassis?
Yeah, so that will actually be a uplift of an existing chassis, but it will be pretty much all the electrification system and vehicle systems will be ours. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, I think that's all the questions we have for you, Mike. You fielded them well, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So we'll move on now to the curated networking portion of the program. Since we kind of have everybody's attention here. If there's an opportunity, if anyone wants to kind of talk about what they're up to, I know it's really important, as I mentioned, especially as we're mostly meeting virtually, to kind of see what people are up to, hear what people are up to. So if anybody wants to, I will happily accept any prompt that you want. If you want to raise your hand, turn your camera on, let us know who you are, what you're working on. We have some new faces, so it would be good to hear. It'd be nice to hear from the people that haven't usually been to these meetups before.
I'll go.
There you go, Chris. How you doing?
Good, thanks. I'm Chris Olsen with Oakland County. So a couple things I'm working on right now is we have Motorbella. It's going to be an offshoot of the auto show that's held in Detroit, but it's going to be held at the M1 Concourse this September. So there's going to be over 600 vehicles of the 1.5-mile racetrack at M1 Concourse. Half mile is going to be closed down for exhibits or show supercars to high-tech cars. And the 1 mile straightaway portion of the track will be open for people to go for rides with the professional drivers. So we're looking forward to that. And also want to let people know we're taking a peek at some signal priority, transit signal priority. So keeping the green lights green longer or shortening those red lights for whether it's snow, our snow plows, emergency vehicles, and buses. So just kind of fiddling in that space right now.
Sure. I really appreciate you mentioning that. Can you give the dates again for the Motorbella?
September 21st is a Tuesday to that Sunday, the 26th, I believe. So the first 2 days, like the traditional auto show, will have that industry preview days and press days. So that'll be that Tuesday and Wednesday, the first 2 days. So hopefully we're hoping Governor Whitmer is going to be able to come down from the MICHauto Policy Conference as well as our county executive. So it's going to be a bit of a juggling act there.
Oh, that's great. Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
I was going to say, I can also add, in addition to an opportunity for companies to exhibit or demonstrate on the track, we will be hosting match meetings on that Tuesday. This hasn't been announced yet, but we're working through it. So if a company is exhibiting or wants to participate in match meetings, we'll be hosting them that Tuesday from 1 to 4 p.m. And then that'll roll into a reception at 4:30. So there will be some networking opportunities with a bit of programming in addition to, of course, just walking around and meeting all the great exhibitors.
Great plug, Catherine. I mentioned it, Chris, just because I wanted to make sure people knew, because it's so refreshing to have in-person events to plug again and to talk about. And so we missed our auto show. We missed a lot of kind of in-person auto related events. So it's great to hear that you've got something in the hopper and ready in September. That'll be awesome. I'll just mention for the sake of the conversation that the Chamber just had our Detroit Policy Conference yesterday at the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater, formerly Shane Park. And we had over 500 attendees. And, I mentioned that because I think it goes to show, it was obviously an outdoor area, so that certainly helped. But I think it goes to show that there's an appetite for in-person events and for people to get together again, and for us to get back to some kind of semblance of normal in a safe way. So it can be done. It's starting to be done, and so I just encourage everybody to think about that in your own respective organizations. I'm interested if Catherine and I talked about this kind of offline, but if we did the next mobility meetup in person, would there be any objections to that? Would you attend an in-person event of roughly 50 or so people? I think we're at an inflection point here where it starts to make sense to plan stuff maybe out of the virtual realm. I'm getting nods, so
yes, I would. Yeah.
I think that people would do it.
That's great.
Yes.
Does anybody else want to jump in and give a quick update? All right.
I can jump in.
Go ahead, Jonathan. You look like you're looking on something. You're working on something really cool in your background. So
No, this is Doctor Strange. If anybody can, so if you're a Marvel fan. No, actually, I work for Toyota Tsusho America. We're a Japanese trading company, part of the Toyota Group, Toyota family of companies. I'll just quickly introduce myself. As any trading company, our activities are just so diverse. It'd be too much to get into in this kind of setting. But I work in our corporate strategy and business development. It's part investment side, and also setting up new partnerships and new new partnerships and relationships. So we work with all of our operating divisions, and so we're always looking for exciting new companies, or we do stuff industry 1.0 and looking ahead to the future as well. So so yeah, nice to meet everyone. Always appreciate your event. So I wanted to just introduce myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. So if there's, I will mention also, just for anyone else, we are recording this session. So if you have colleagues who you think might benefit from hearing the conversation, or connecting with any of the individuals who are on today, we'll make the recording available, and you can access it and share it however you wish. I'm going to bring on Len now to talk about how we can continue the networking again outside of the event today. So Len, why don't you take it away?
All right, and I'm just going to share my screen really quick, everybody. Hopefully, can someone give me a thumbs up? Let me know you can see my screen. All right, so for anyone that's interested in taking the connections beyond just today, OFME has this website set up that's connected to an iOS and Android app for everyone here today, as well as anyone that's attended a previous mobility meetup. It's been built for connections, meetings, and getting everyone connected even outside of today. So as we go into hopefully those in-person networking sessions this summer, you still will have this companion app. But with that being said, to get access to it, all you have to do is to go to mobilitymi.connect.space, and that will bring you to a page where it just says, it gives you one thing to select, and that's this page right here. You can actually even view this on your cell phones right now. And as you scroll down, if you just go and you go ahead and click Apple or Play Store, depending on which one your system or the phone that you use or tablet that you use, it'll actually take you directly to the page to download the app. Once you download the app, I'm going to move over to this handy dandy screen that I've got up here as well. You're just going to go ahead and log in. If you already have logged in, maybe you've attended meetings like Catherine mentioned, those in-person meetings in the past, those are all attached to your company and your accounts. So with your email, so you can actually get access. If not, go ahead and sign up. You just click that, it'll take you through the process. All you need to put in at first is your first name, last name, and email, and a password. You can skip the rest of the information and come back to it later on. But once you get logged in, what it'll do is you'll see this pop up right there. It is. So what this is this is your opportunity to say what you're providing or what you're seeking. Providing is if you're selling something, if you're purchasing, so say you have a need for something specific, go ahead and hit seeking. I'm going to skip it for now because I already have a bunch in there. You're going to come to this homepage where you're going to kind of see some of the information about yourself and your company that you're representing, as well as other initiatives. For the sake of today, what we want you to do is just go ahead and click go to the initiative. And on here, you're going to see the Mobility MI is already connected to the Twitter feed. So you can see the kind of the cool stuff that people are talking about on Twitter. The main reason for today, though, is if you go ahead and you hit that people section, those heads in that body right there, you can see everybody that's attended a mobility meetup virtual session throughout the whole, almost last year, right? That's as long as we've been doing this stuff. So you can actually go to each one of those individuals. I'm just going to pick Jeremy for the sake of today. Oh, I've already requested a connection request with him. But what you can do is you can actually send out individual connection requests with people to double opt in. Once you get that connection request, you can reach out, set up a meeting, you can give them a call, and it'll actually take the information out of the app and into your phone. So you'll have it for a later date, which is really cool. Also, something else that's available is you can actually set up those meetings, and you can select whether it's providing or seeking the information that you're meeting with them about, because there's nothing worse than having a meeting and not know why you're meeting, right? So with this, you can actually choose the specific tags that you want to talk about and provide details. It's also something that, and this is important to mention, you can meet with people outside of today. And anyone that has the app downloaded will actually receive a push notification that you received or that you sent them a meeting request, so that you can actually get together and do some business, get some business done, and make some real connections out of that, out of these networking sessions. You can also read a little bit about the individual. And then if you go to the connection request where you see my connections, I don't have any in there right now. Oh, there it is. You'll be able to see all the people that you've connected with. So if you've connected with somebody in a previous mobility meetup over this last year, all that information will show there, as well as any connection requests that you have. There's tons more stuff that you can do, but I know I have a little bit of a limited amount of time today. So if you have any questions or need any information, I'm happy to put it into the chat or connect you with someone at OFME to give you more information on how to get involved. So again, my name's Len Gauger. I'm with ConnectSpace, and my email is len@connectspaceinc.com. So, and please send me a connection request. I'm happy to help anyone out that needs it. Just let me know.
Thanks, Len. And again, feel free to continue to connect. That's what this is all about. We're happy to have you join us again in a kind of midsummer day here. The next one we'll do, we'll date TBD, but you can look for that sometime in September. And as I've teased before, and Catherine and I have started talking about, it may be in person. I think we hope we can make that work, and we'd love to see you all in person again for these types of events. So did anybody have any final comments or items to add? If not, we will end a little early today and let everyone enjoy their day, the rest of their summer. And I know on behalf of the Off-Me team and the MICHauto and Chamber team, we're really happy to have you join us, and we really look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Devin. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you.